I'm joined here today by the one, the only, it is of course Miranda Maverick, coming off the impressive doctor stoppage victory at UFC Fight Island. What's going on? Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. I actually just got done with school and back home, getting ready to work on some homework and this interview.
Well, how's it going with the jet lag and everything? 'Cause it sounds like you got right back in the swing of things.
I did, I never really take much of a break. As soon as I got back here that night, I went in and said hi to everybody. And then yesterday, I got right back to training 3 hours. So I'll be back to the full swing of things by next week.
And so, how are you feeling mentally and physically? Obviously, you had the flight and everything. I'm sure the time difference, it makes a difference, but you guys tried to stay on US time. Did you notice a big difference when you got back home?
So I actually ended up staying on the Abu Dhabi time. Once I got out there, it ended up being the easier thing to do. So once I got back, obviously that time difference is a little bit difficult to get back used to, but I just stayed up longer the other night. And so last night I tried to get semi-normal sleep, woke up a little bit earlier than usual, but I'd say 2 days from now it'll be back to normal. But, all that stuff accounted in is pretty difficult getting back to regular life.
And so, how was the experience in Abu Dhabi? Obviously, they fly you guys out in the really nice seats on the plane and everything. You get to stay in the quarantine in the hotel. How was the whole experience?
It was pretty amazing, especially for me. Like, I'd never traveled overseas or anything like that, especially not in any kind of plane past like normal economy seats. So I got business class and stuff, and it was really nice and relaxing. And then being out there for the biggest card of 2020, you were just treated so nice out there by everybody. It was a very, very great experience, both in excitement and just seeing different cultures, seeing different part of the world. It was beautiful. A nice vacation.
How was the experience in the hotel? I know some fighters they struggled, with the sleep. Some of them it was with boredom and stuff like that. How was the situation for you?
It wasn't really difficult at all. I actually, like I said, it was more of a vacation than I've probably ever had before. It was pretty nice. 2 days of quarantine were a little bit difficult, but after that, it was, kind of do whatever I needed to do. Luckily, I had a fairly easy weight cut, so that wasn't too much of an issue. And I got my sleep schedule adjusted within the first couple days by just forcing myself to stay awake a little bit longer. So that I'd say the hardest part for me was keeping up with school while I was out there. Like I was still having to do 3.5 hours Zoom meetings from like 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. out
Wow.
there due to the time difference. So that part was pretty difficult.
And so you didn't get to a chance to, kind of put the school to the side at all, like maybe, absentee for the week. Like you had to keep that going
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah, I literally had a 4 hour Zoom meeting the day of weight cut. So I was up after only had like 4 pounds to go, like thirsting to death, starving to death, having to participate in discussions for like 4 hours. So yeah, there was no break whatsoever. But the day of the fight and the day of weigh-ins, I had gotten ahead on everything where I at least didn't have to work those 2 days. But then Sunday, I was right back to grading, right back to working on schoolwork to play catch up.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, what's the experience like for not just yourself, but for the people around you when you're doing school while you're cutting weights? We know fighters they can get a little bit cranky. How was that? Were you able to kind of manage that?
Yeah, I feel like, once you get a certain amount of experience with it, it just becomes the normal. But I also warned, like my coach obviously knows, my boyfriend, I warned about it, like the stress levels were going to be heightened, the emotions were going to be heightened. But I'm not so much the grumpy person anymore. It's one of those things where it's a decision. It's a decision. And for me, like, I chose to have that dream. I chose to live that miserable part of the life to have the great part of it. So there's no sense in being grumpy about it. And I try my best to keep happy and stay calm and composed while I'm doing it. And I don't know if you saw, but like my Instagram, I was singing during the weight cut, like doing everything I could to just have fun and make light of the misery.
And so, what's the goal with the school? Because I think a lot of people would kind of look at your situation and think, like, with the UFC, you'd eventually try to transition to fighting full time. What's kind of the goal there with kind of what you're doing?
Well, the goal is to have something to do after I'm done fighting. All it takes is one injury to put you out of fighting entirely. And I've had the realism of that several times in the past. So the goal is to have an education to fall back on. I want to be done with fighting anyway by the time I'm in my early 30s. And unless I become like a millionaire in the process in the
Right.
next few years, I'll need some kind of job to fall back on. So I want to finish out my education while I'm doing MMA and then hopefully focus on MMA for a few years and be able to transition into a more normalized career after that.
And it's I mean it's a very interesting plan because I think even a lot of people would think it'd be kind of weird to see fighters go back to a normal life after fighting. I think everyone imagines like when you're done with your career, you just sit back in this big mansion in your 30s, but it's not the case.
Well, I think a lot of fighters just end up like going to a gym, starting their own gym,
Right.
or becoming a coach, and they kind of just a lot of people I see just kind of struggle along after their main career or and I have like other aspirations. Who knows? Maybe I will open my own gym and stuff, but I also want an education to be able to go and do more with, whether it be start my own business, consulting for other businesses, or to tie it in with the sport.
For sure, it's a very smart plan. Let's talk about your debut a little bit. I feel like you kind of had this sort of extreme scenario, right? Because you have to fly out to Abu Dhabi, and I believe you said you hadn't left the country before. You have to quarantine in this hotel. There's no fan. Like everything was kind of a different experience for you. But how do you look back on that debut? I assume you must be pretty happy with the way everything went.
I'm pretty happy. I talked about with some people before and talked about after my fight. Like, I wish it would have actually ended differently. I wish I would have gotten to put hands on her to finish that fight in the middle of the round, whether it be the second round and put her out with a KO, a submission, whatever. Because it leaves room for interpretation from people. You know, they're like, well, if the fight would have continued, you could have gotten your butt kicked. You know, you hear all the haters and different things. And I'm like, no, the judges still had it like 8-10, 9-10, 9-10, and I was dominating after the first minute of the round once I basically got adjusted to that new environment, you know. But it was just exciting to go in there and be able to use my Muay Thai and that striking background that I do have, but people kind of just ignored because I hadn't used it as much as my grappling. So it was not touted as much as my grappling, I'll put it that way. But I wanted to show that I'm a well-rounded fighter, and there's always improvement in every area for me and just about every other fighter out there. But I'm here to stay. I'm here to improve and show my stuff every time I go into that cage.
A lot of people they talk about the famous octagon jitters, whether it's before you walk out to the cage, sometimes later on in the fight. What was your experience? Did you have any sort of octagon jitters?
Not really. Like I said, that first minute took some adjusting, but I think it was just me figuring out my range, my timing against that fighter. I rely heavily on my faith. You know, I'm a Christian. And so for me, I try to put all my anxiety, all my worry with God. You know, it's already taken care of. I train to the fullest of my ability. I go in there knowing the worst that can happen and the best that can happen. And I just know that I'm going to go in there and do my best. So there's no reason to be nervous or anxious or anything like that. And I've envisioned those moments so many times, getting to the UFC, winning, having my hand raised, like all of those different things, whether it be bad or good, I've envisioned. So going in there were no real surprises. There was no reason or really way for me to have any jitters. And so I prepared for that mentally as much as I could.
So the big talk of the fight was, of course, you threw this big elbow. I feel like we don't see a lot of fighters throw an elbow in the way you did, and we saw the kind of damage you did. What's the story behind that elbow? Is that something like you saw an opening? Are you working on it in training? What's kind of the story behind it?
Oh, we were working on it in training. In fact, my coach is trying to go through some old videos just to see if he can find like videos of us training together to put it up next to the fight, you know, because
Oh
that would
yeah.
be pretty neat. But it was one of the things that we were working, like elbow combinations, and then also like me faking takedowns into either the elbow or the uppercut kind of thing. It's all about feints, fakes, you know, and then coming in when they're coming towards me, like I knew I had been so aggressive that she was really trying to get something off because she needed it to win that round. And so when she rushed forward, it was just every time she did it was a perfect opening for the elbow. So I tried it 3 separate times. The second connected pretty good, and that third obviously made the biggest cut. And then I threw an elbow right after it to follow it up. So perfect game plan, been working it all the time, and it was great. I couldn't have asked for that to turn out better.
Yeah, you mentioned that people think of you primarily as a sort of a wrestler. Is that helpful at all? Because we get to see that you get to exploit your striking things. People are so worried about your takedown. Has that led to more openings and things like that?
Absolutely. That's something the coaches and I talked about, especially during this fight camp. Like even Jojua, who was, you know, renowned for her grappling, I guess you would say, supposedly, according to her interviews, was worried about going to the ground with me as well, which I don't blame her. But it gives me opportunities to go for those takedowns or act like I'm going for those takedowns, and they'll be worried about that and not paying as much attention to the stand up. So it allows me to be a little bit more free with what I want to throw, I guess, which is always nice.
So, of course, you mentioned the doctor stoppage. What's going through your mind out in the cages? I'm sure you have the adrenaline, things like that. You're ready to go. You find out the fight's being stopped because of, the cut that came with the elbow and all that stuff. What's your reaction like when you first hear that the fight's being stopped?
You can kind of hear my reaction in the background. It's just kind of funny to rewatch. Like I just screamed. I was the first one out of my corner to see it was being stopped because I was facing her. And I was like telling my coach, no, no, like stop coaching me. I was like, look,
Oh, yeah.
like the fight stopped. And so I screamed and then was really excited. Of course, I had no idea they were going to stop it even after the cut and all the blood. I assumed, she would continue into the next round. You never want to go in assuming.
So does it still feel like a satisfying win for you? Because it does go down as a TKO. It is technically a finish. Or like you mentioned, you would rather put the pause on her.
I would, of course, rather put the pause on her, but I'm feel very accomplished. I feel very good about what I did and how I did in the fight. You hear all the haters and stuff, different ones saying like, she would have destroyed you had it went on, or even in her interview, she was like, I was winning that round, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, no, you weren't, but okay. And everybody's going to say that, that doesn't want to admit they lost or whatever, but it was fair. I mean, I'm the one that caused the damage and the doctors decided to stop it. And you hear a lot of the professionals saying that that's probably what was best. Had they not stopped the fight, the second round would have just been me targeting her nose the entire time. So it's probably better for her that they did stop it.
And so, are you getting a lot of I don't know if it's backlash or like a lot of comments trying to take away from this wings? It sounds like even from her and stuff like that. Maybe people aren't giving you quite the credit you deserve after that one.
I think the people that matter are giving me
Right.
credit. You know what I mean? There's always going to be the people that are hating about it or, trying to discredit it. It wouldn't matter if I had won via a knockout in the first 10 seconds or ground and pound in the third round. Like there's always going to be somebody that, or a lot of people even that say that, you didn't deserve the win or you got lucky or whatever else. So I'm just trying to ignore that and get ready to show in my next fight even more. I could care less. It's a win on my record. I got paid and I'm moving on.
And so you're in a unique division in the UFC, of course, with Valentina Shevchenko being the champion. And it sounds like, there's some contenders in the division that are actually kind of scared of her, right? Because she has sort of built up this invincibility about her and stuff like that. When you enter a division like that, how much are you paying attention to Valentina and what she's doing and kind of seeing yourself, facing her someday?
All of it. Every single training session is to train for her. It's not to train for Jojua. It's not to train for the top 10. It's to train for whoever's the champion at that time. And we say Valentina because she's obviously the champion right now. But I won't care who the champion is once I get there. Like that's who I want to fight as the best in the world. And again, I'm getting backlash for having said that I want to be a contender coming up. But I also gave myself a timeline. I didn't say I want to jump right into it, but I want to be given top 10. I want to move my way up as fast as I can. That's the reason there are new people in the division, is to challenge for that title to eventually get there. And I'm young coming into a division where there are a lot of people who don't want to fight for the title. They're just like, yeah, I'll fight whoever. Nobody wants to hear that. Like, why would you want to fight whoever? Like, if you're not trying to be the best, then get out of the sport.
For sure, that makes a lot of sense. Coming out of, I believe that was 5 minutes of fight time. I assume you're healthy. Do you know realistically when we can expect to see you fight again?
We're already in talks with the matchmaker. Hopefully early December. It kind of is working around my fight schedule right now, but I would anticipate seeing me before 2021.
That would be great. One last question, and you mentioned it a little bit, but realistically, who would you want to fight next?
Like I said, I'm not sure about a perfect name yet. I want it to be a higher ranking, but we'll see what they do. I just want to be climbing the ladder the entire time that I fight. I don't want to have to fight the number 27, the number 26. Like I want to jump up as quickly as I can. Hopefully in the next couple of years, get to where I am the contender for that title. So hopefully Dana and Mick Maynard and all them can decide on somebody to get me by 2021 and they'll agree to the fight and let's go. It could be Jillian Robertson. It could be Jessica I don't know exactly who I want to call out, but any of those girls that are in the top 15, top 10.
For sure, lots of exciting opportunities. Listen, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on the victory, and hopefully we'll see you fight, a contender in December.
Hopefully. Thank you very much.